The New York Rangers, they're rolling right now, 3 straight wins, a strong 2-1-1 road trip that showed a bit of grit, a bit of growth as well. So we're going to break down what's been working for the Blue Shirts and what's ahead in a big week that they have coming up against the Hurricanes, the Red Wings, and the Islanders. I'm joined by Matthew Mugno, host of Forever Blue Shirts, who joins me now. Matt, what's going on? How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Podcast Puck Talk CS going great. We're still keeping the right and chops up, and this is a better time to be talking about the Rangers than when I spoke to you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's much different because if we had even spoken, we were talking about this before we started recording 6 days ago. This whole conversation might be very different. But Matt, the Rangers, they just wrapped up a road trip. As I mentioned, they went 2-1-1. They've won 3 straight overall. What stood out to you the most about how this team responded after a tough start to that West Coast swing?
Well, first, it's identity. This team's identity, they're not fast. Under Peter Laviolette, the previous coach, they had to learn that the puck moves faster than man. Now, are there a lot of players from those teams remaining? No. That 2024 team that made the President's Trophy went to the Eastern Conference Final, losing to Florida. Not many of those players remain. But for the key pieces, it was a lesson in moving the puck first. Now, this team doesn't have the foot speed. They're a little bit older. They've got kind of a shot in the leg from Noah Laba, who's very fast, down the center lane. And without Vincent Trocheck, you think, the leaders are going to have to come through. I think what this showed was grit and the ability to find ways to win. Something we were not seeing earlier in the season was finding ways to win, many ways. Uh, we're being outshot, but we'll win the game and steal it. Igor Shesterkin is putting on a 30-plus save performance. We'll just get one and get out of the building. We weren't seeing them find a way to win, and I think that's the key to this road trip was they were able to string together a few W's on the backs of one or two plays. It wasn't something that on the offensive side of the puck was a barrage, which we've waited for, but also Dexter, the defense is really clamping down. It's funny. I know you cover the Knicks. Imagine Thibodeau's Knicks level defense. That's what we're seeing Mike Sullivan implement into this Rangers team on the hockey, the hockey side, the hockey rink at MSG. But that also returned to form. Last I spoke to you was, I believe, before the game in Calgary. And that was the low point of the season thus far. Early going, but it seemed like it was getting late early.
Yeah, it did feel like that. And then I think when you look at this trip, right, and particularly, Matt, when you look at the wins against Edmonton and Seattle, now, they weren't perfect games, but you used the word grit, but they were gritty. They were resilient in those games. What do you think it says about this group's ability to grind out points early in the season, even when they're not at their best?
That could be this team's identity. And I think it harkens back somewhat to the John Tortorella years. I've compared this team to the 2011-12 New York Rangers, just based on, as you mentioned, resilience, grit factor. Their top scorers, it's no secret, are not finding the score sheet. Even on this trip, they win 3 games in a row. Zibanejad, 1 goal, 1 point. Panarin, a whopping 0 points for how productive and how he's scribed the history books in his tenure in New York. Haven't seen a lot of the fruitful production from 10. Miller, a goal and an assist. Just 2 points, but here's the key. JT Miller has been very vocal. I've really enjoyed watching his post-game press conferences, even after losses, for his leadership style. He's always been abrasive, drags his team into the fight. He had the overtime goal against Edmonton, willing his way to the net to score. And he had the assist on Will Cooley's OTG against Seattle. So I think that although those top performers haven't come through, the fact you're getting scoring from Will Cooley, 5 points, a 4 assist streak going on right now. Adam Fox from the back end with 4 apples. Alexi Lafreniere, who's taken a lot of heat after signing his massive contract last season. His full earnings this year are $10 million, 3 assists on this road trip, and Noah Laba finding the back of the cage for his first NHL goal and scoring last night off the rush with a new line. This team is starting to gel. And although we've seen a lot of lineup changes with the lines, especially the forward group, there's depth scoring here, which is something that has been both criticized and praised on the ups and downs so far in October.
Yeah, you're wondering if you can see a lot of these guys continue to support guys like JT Miller as you move down into the season, and they can get that resiliency factor throughout the entire roster, and hopefully that can build up. Now, fans always like to look at the young players that are coming, and Gabe Perreault, he's been making noise down in Hartford. How close do you think he is to getting a call up? We saw what he could do a little bit in the preseason, and what could his eventual addition mean for this roster's depth that you just mentioned, and also their scoring balance? What do you think he could do for them there?
Yeah, it's interesting, Dexter. Let's look at the lineup right now. They have a line where it's Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, JT Miller. So they loaded the top line. We haven't seen a loaded top line like this, at least for maybe more than one game. I think since they tried it in the conference final in 2022. So there's always been a balance of scoring, which is necessary in hockey. Uh, but it's interesting to see that they united the top players on the first line. The second line last night featured Will Cooley, Noah Laba, and Alexi Lafreniere. Now, the center position suffering without Vincent Trocheck. The third line seems like it still lacks an identity with Parson and Sheary and Radish. Taylor Radish, the leading scorer at the moment of the New York Rangers. He scored against Edmonton. And then your fourth line, which I think has a lot of character and has contributed to this team so far this year with Edstrom, Carrick, and Brodzinski. So in terms of the lineup and the balance, do you want to bring in your first round selection from 2023, highly decorated junior career? He's 20 years old. Now, as a professional hockey player, he played games last season with the New York Rangers and the big club. He's tied for second in scoring among rookies in the AHL at the moment with 5 goals, 5 assists, and 10 points in 9 games played. And I will give a shout out to Dexter, you and I, in this media world. Keegan Jarvis is a great resource for material on the Hartford Wolfpack.
Yep.
He's an account online. I believe he writes for Blue Shirt Banter. So that's someone to continue to monitor. He's done a great job with covering Gabe Perreault in this situation. That's where I've gathered a lot of my information from. But yes, Gabriel Perreault, how close is he? It's hard to determine because I thought Brennan Othman was close, and it seemed that he just wasn't ready for the big NHL league yet. So I think it would be best served if the New York Rangers continue to let him grow until the team finds a steady balance. They're coming back into the fold. They've shot up the standings with this 3-game win streak. Let's see if this can continue before you bring a 20-year-old into a locker room that, as we saw last year, fell apart. And as you know, handling and developing youth is very important, and it's been crucial for this team. And I don't think the club has hit the marks that they were expected to the last 5 years in that department.
I think a couple good points you made there too, right? Which is you want to bring a guy up when you think he's ready. You don't want to put him in a high pressure situation. You don't want to put him in a locker room that's not ready. Not saying that this Rangers locker room isn't ready, but you want to make sure the time is right. Now, look, he's killing it at Hartford, getting a lot of goals, as you said, 5 and 10 games. However, could use a little bit more development. All development isn't linear, so we'll see with Perreault how that goes for him. All right, Matt, before we get out of here, let's look ahead to the upcoming games this week for the Blue Shirts because they're home for the Hurricanes on Tuesday. Then they go to the Motor City to battle the Red Wings on Friday. Then they're back home to host the Islanders on Saturday. So we talked about all they've done well on this road trip. How crucial is it for the Rangers to build on this momentum that they had on this road trip against some tough Metropolitan Division opponents here?
Yeah, there's no easy night in the NHL. There's 32 teams, 31 other clubs that have skill players, have gritty players, and have at least a semblance of goaltending. This is no longer 10 years ago, post-dead puck. This is a time where there is a lot of skill in the league, and the Florida Panthers' back-to-back championships has forced teams to return to a physical identity. With that stated, this is going to be an important stretch. The Carolina Hurricanes, despite the fact that they're missing a lot of players, topping the Metro Division. Then you have the rival Islanders next weekend. So with boasting number one overall draft pick Matthew Schaefer, who for the Islanders has been a seamless transition for a teenager on the back end. I love his character. I love the way he plays. So I do think this stretch, as any stretch is crucial because we've thrown the word around sustainability, Dexter. How sustainable was that 3-game win streak? They're 0-4-1 at MSG. They have a huge nationally televised game against the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday. Can they swing that momentum and get their first home victory at home against one of the top teams in the Metropolitan Division? Think about what that can do for this team's confidence. They're already starting to gain the big C, but how do they build upon that and continue to bring that into home ice matchups at Madison Square Garden? And then they're swinging on the road again to Detroit. And Detroit has also played a phenomenal first 10 games. They're one of the top teams in the Atlantic Division. So there's no sleeper in this stretch, the next 3 games. If I'm going to circle a game, though, although I mentioned nationally televised game against Carolina, a game against the Detroit Red Wings, who have been hot to start the year, I'm going to circle the Islanders matchup because if you can win that rivalry game, think about how far that could go for you. Even if you drop one, if you get some points out of the next 2, it's still in the early goings. But I do think from the fans' perspective, from the players' perspective, you earn a victory over the New York Islanders. And that could go a long way for confidence and morale.
Yep, couple of games this week where things could go a long way for the Rangers if they are to secure some wins, pick up some points. We'll see how they do. 3 games coming up this week. We talked about the Hurricanes, talked about the Red Wings, and then the Islanders next weekend. That is Matthew Mugno. Check him out. Puck Talks, Forever Blue Shirts as well, doing a great job covering the Rangers. Matt, always good to talk to you about some Rangers hockey. And see, this time we got to talk after some wins. Hopefully we do that again next time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dexter. And by the way, final fact. Teams, if they are below the playoff line by Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, I think there's around a 10 or 11% chance that they make the postseason. You could check my numbers on that, but that's also a major warning sign for the New York Rangers. Hopefully, next time I talk to you, they're above that line.
I'm gonna note that in the next couple of weeks as we move towards the Thanksgiving holiday. Let's see if the Rangers are above that line. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, have a good night.